Hey guys, Sean here at the Gardener Center, and when you think of doing things in the garden like planting, October may not be the first month that comes to mind, but October is actually prime time for planting bulbs here in Connecticut. I'm talking about daffodils, crocus, hyacinths, tulips, alliums, a bunch of other cool things. October is the best month of the whole year to do that here in Connecticut, and today I'd like to take some time to share some thoughts on why we should plant bulbs. Get into some specifics on the different varieties and choices, and give you a few tips on how to be successful with them, so stick around. So way back in the early 90s when I first got into the plant selling business, bulbs were a really big deal. We used to get pallets and pallets of bulbs at the nursery I was working at the time, and we literally spent a week creating our bulb display. Some years, the owner of the bulb company himself would fly over from the Netherlands to the States and visit our display and take pictures. It was a big deal. Truth be told, over the past 20, 30 years, bulbs have not been so popular. They've really fallen out of favor with gardeners. Gardening is still as popular as ever, but bulbs have kind of fallen by the wayside. They're not super popular anymore. And I think a big part of the reason for that is just the way our lifestyles have changed. Technology over the past 20, 30 years has changed our lives, the way we think, the way we live. We're kind of I want it now people, and instant gratification people. And bulbs just kind of don't fit into that mold because it's something you have to invest time and money in, but you don't even get to look at them for 6 months. So I don't think it computes well with our modern minds. And I'm saying trust me and give them a chance, because what I love about gardening and what really got me into it as a kid is the sense of hopeful anticipation that it creates. And bulbs are a good way to experience that, because you can you put them in the ground now in October, and then you wait for them. It's like when you book a really cool trip or a vacation, but it's not for 6 or 7 months. It's like, you know you're going, so you're looking forward to it. It's that little thing on the horizon that you can think of and be happy about. So getting bulbs in the ground now is perfect, because these guys are going to bloom. These are going to be the first bloomers in the spring. So I'm talking about late February, March. These are going to be the first ray of hope and ray of sunshine in the springtime. Bulbs are a great thing. I know a lot of people got into gardening with their kids this year. Vegetable gardens and herbs, things like that. These are super easy to do with the kids. They're easy to handle. You just dig in small holes. Fun for the whole family. So trust me, you want to plant some bulbs this October, because they're going to make you happy. Okay, so something that's always kind of confusing with these bulbs is we call them fall bulbs, but they bloom in the spring. So I'm talking about tulips, I'm talking about daffodils, crocus. They're really the three most common ones. Hyacinths over here. We plant them in the fall, and then they bloom in the spring, but we call them fall bulbs. And I know you guys like them, because every year in March and April, people come to the garden center looking to buy tulips and looking to buy hyacinths and looking to buy daffodils, but it's not the right time to plant them. We sell them that time of year for like gifty things, like for Easter, but if you want to landscape with them, right now is the time to do that. And the way the bulbs work, you put them in the ground now, and they're bulbs. We've all seen them before. We know what they look like. You put them in the ground now, and what they're going to do, they're going to spend the next 2 to 3 months rooting out. So once you plant them, that bulb is just going to send roots out, and it's going to establish itself in the soil and get ready to bloom next spring. So you're getting them in the ground. October is the perfect month. I typically wouldn't recommend putting them in after Thanksgiving as a cutoff for them. But some varieties and some things to know about them. If you have a deer problem, a lot of people have deer problems. So if you have a deer problem, you want to look at daffodils. Daffodils, aka narcissus. They come in yellows, whites, oranges, bicolors, doubles, singles, so you can go nuts if you have a deer problem with the daffodils. They're not going to get eaten by woodchucks either, so they're great. Also alliums, which are in the onion family. Alliums are also not liked by deer and other animals that eat your plants. Moving along, if you don't have a deer problem, you can get tulips. Tulips are fun. Interesting thing about tulips versus daffodils, though, is tulips you treat more like an annual bulb, because tulips, you can plant them and they'll look great the first year they bloom, and then they might bloom a little bit more the following years, but their flowers tend to get smaller and the plant kind of declines over time. Same thing is true with the hyacinths. They look nice that first year they're planted, but over the subsequent years they'll get smaller and kind of decline. So tend to use those for 1 year only. Whereas your daffodils and your little crocus are going to naturalize. They're going to spread around in your lawn in your lawn or your garden like a perennial would. Same thing with the alliums over here. So those are some basic choices, but we have lots of colors and lots of varieties of each here at the store. So come on down and talk to somebody in the shop and pick some bulbs out. Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind while you're planting your bulbs with your kids in October is they need to be fed when you plant them. Remember, bulbs are going in the ground, they're staying in there, you're not going to see them again. So you want to make sure you give them a good dose of fertilizer when you plant them. Espoma bulb tone is a nice product here. We also have bone meal, which is another slower release fertilizer, which a lot of people like to use for fertilizer for bulb plants. Another thing to keep in mind is animals. Now, we talked about animals that eat your bulbs, and I'm talking about squirrels specifically here, and some to a lesser extent chipmunks. But a lot of people have trouble with squirrels with the bulbs because they're little jerks. And the squirrels aren't even eating your bulbs. What squirrels do is squirrels are very interested when they see soil that's been disturbed or soil that's been loosened. So they'll very often, after you plant your bulbs, come by the next day and dig them up. Not because they're eating the bulbs, not because they want to take them, but because they're just kind of curious that way. I mean, if anyone's ever come home from work and walked up the front path and found a geranium laying on the ground that they planted in the pot the day before, that was a squirrel. That's what they do. They're little jerks, and they do things like that. So a really good thing to do is we love this granular Repels-All here at the store. You can sprinkle some of that in the hole while you're planting, and then sprinkle a little bit on top when you're done. It's going to keep the squirrels and chipmunks away from your bulbs all fall long. Okay guys, so October is a great weather month, and we know now that it's a great month for planting bulbs. We have a whole bunch of them here to pick from, so come on down, and thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.